What I'm going to take you through in this video is the process of including all the information that we've so far gathered in our research and determining the methods into what we call an assessment tool. Remember, an assessment tool is about bringing together the instructions on what the learner and the assessor need to do, and also the place where we capture the evidence, which we typically call the instrument. So in our process to developing an assessment tool, we're at this point here where we're now bringing in the information to the instrument, and together with our instructions we will develop a tool. So let me take you back to this document we were looking at earlier, where we determined our methods. We said observation, question and a project were the three methods we're going to employ, and we're going to, for this activity, look at an observation process or an observation tool that we're going to develop. And because the observation is a process, we will develop a observation tool which includes all of this information here. You have in your file an observation tool template. Now here, as you can see, it lays out a foundation for where you might include the information for the specific assessment event you're looking at. Again, here we would put our instructions. As we said, the instructions are part of a tool, and then further down we would actually include what is the actions to be observed or what we're going to capture in this process. So the first thing I would do is I would actually gather this statement here, which was what is the intent of the tool, what is the observation in this case we're going to be looking for, what should we be able to record through our observation process. So we would capture that. So we copy that essentially, and we will paste that in here. We'll play around with this and word it more adequately as we go along, but essentially if we go down and we look for what we've drawn out in terms of our observation, this would be our first one. Copy that and we would place it in here, and then we would do the same for the second one, and we would place that in the second, and then we would go to the third one, and again just copy that and paste that in there. Now sometimes it might be as simple as copy your thoughts or what you've done so far and it makes sense. Sometimes you might have to adjust the wording to ensure that there's a good flow in it, but that's now capturing all the observable processes we determined earlier on in our research. So it's about the processes that we want to capture. Now what's left in this tool really is to include our instructions. In your file you do have some generic instructions, and instructions usually are about instructions to the assessor, and further down I've got instructions to the student. There's a lot of common ground here as far as instructions go. They're about the assessment task, the time, the place, the resources, the collecting of evidence and the marking criteria from the assessor's perspective. But to the student they're about the task, the time, the place, the resources, evidence to be collected and marking criteria and submission. So there's some broad headings you might be able to use, and all you need to do really is you can use this layout and just tailor the components that suit your assessment event and your assessment tool. So going back to including those instructions, as you can see we've pasted those instructions into our observation checklist, and what we've done is we've included the information in red, which was our specific information tailored for this particular event, and as you can see that more or less comes from our research we did earlier on. And then we've got similar for the instructions to the student. So instructions to the assessor, instructions to the student, a lot of similarity but addressed towards those two people involved in the assessment event. And then as we saw earlier, including all this other information for the assessment or observation, and then down the bottom where we can capture the judgment of competence and signing off by the people that were involved, being the candidate and the assessor. So that same approach we would use for the written questions, again instructions, and using the template you have on file. You could use true, false, multiple choice, or written answers, whatever applies or is best for your particular event you would use. But as you can see, we've included the questions we determined earlier. We have typical answers, as in this case this is the assessor guide, but there is your questions and answers tool by copying the information and making it fit the template we are using. And then the last one is the project. So as we look at the project, again instructions, and then we would capture what exactly we determined earlier in our research and developing the ideas for our assessment methods, and now we've included them in the instrument. Together with instructions, we create the assessment tool. The next stage will be to create a matrix to ensure we've covered everything before we take this to a trial of our tool.